She was the most hated alien on her planet. Even her own people feared her. The sky was always dark on planet Thraxia. Storms never stopped. Lightning danced across the mountains. The wind screamed like a wild beast. No one lived near the edge of the storm fields, except Kira. Kira was tall, with dark blue skin and glowing yellow eyes. She wore a black cloak made from the hide of a storm beast. Her face was cold, and her voice was rarely heard. People said she was cursed. Even her own kind stayed far away from her. Some said she once betrayed the High Council. Others said she killed her own mate in battle. No one really knew the truth. They only knew one thing. Kira was dangerous, but no one ever asked why she lived alone. No one knew about the small cave deep inside the cliffs, hidden from the world. Inside that cave, a small child slept under warm blankets, his small chest rising and falling. His name was Varn, and he was Kira's son. Kira had broken many laws to keep him safe. Half-blood children were not welcome on Thraxia. His father had been an outsider. The council would never forgive her. That's why she stayed hidden. That's why she became a shadow. One night, the storm became worse than ever before. The wind howled. The ground shook. Rocks fell from the cliffs. Kira held her child close. But then it happened. A bright light fell from the sky. A fireball, burning and fast. It crashed far into the storm fields, shaking the earth. Kira's eyes narrowed. She had seen ships fall before. None had survived the storm. Still, something pulled at her, a feeling she couldn't explain. She left her child sleeping in the cave and climbed the cliff, moving like a ghost through the rain. She stood at the top, looking across the storm fields. The wind cut her skin, but she didn't care. There in the distance, smoke rose from the wreckage. The fire was still burning. Someone had survived. Suddenly, a scream echoed through the wind. Varn. Kira turned in horror. A second storm front had rolled in. The cave was in its path. Her child was in danger. She ran faster than she ever had before. Her feet cut on sharp rocks. Her cloak tore in the wind. She reached the cave, but it was empty. The wind had dragged Varn out. His tiny footprints were already fading in the dirt. "No," she whispered. Then she saw him, small, running, crying out into the storm. Lightning struck nearby, sending fire and dust into the air. Kira ran toward him, but she wasn't alone. From the smoke near the crash site, a figure was moving. It was not Thraxian. Its skin was pale, its body smaller. It walked on 2 feet, stumbling through the wind. A human. Kira's eyes widened. How? Why? No human had ever set foot on Thraxia before. The child cried again. The human turned and saw him. Then, without a word, the human ran into the storm toward the child. Kira was frozen. Was this a trick? A trap? No, the human had no weapon, no armor. He looked weak, lost, but still he ran, pushing through the deadly winds, falling and rising again. He reached Varn and threw himself over the child, shielding him with his own body. Kira felt her chest tighten. Why would a stranger risk his life for a child that wasn't his? She ran to them, faster now, eyes full of fire. When she reached them, the human was barely breathing. His body shook from the cold. Blood ran down his face. But the child, Varn, was alive. The human looked up at Kira with tired eyes. He opened his mouth to speak. But then, he collapsed. Kira stood still, heart pounding. For the first time in her life, she didn't know what to do. She had hated humans. She had feared them. But this one had saved her child. And now he was dying. She looked around. The storm was coming back, even stronger than before. She had a choice: leave him and be safe, or save him and risk everything. Her fingers tightened around her blade. And then she made her decision. She lifted the human in her arms, held her child close, and vanished into the night. The storm doesn't spare anyone, but he didn't stop running. The storm screamed like a dying beast as it swallowed the cliffs of Thraxia. Sharp rain fell like knives. The sky flashed again and again, turning night into violent light. Most creatures would run from such power. Even the strongest warriors of Thraxia avoided the storm fields. But not him. He had no name in this world, no voice in this storm. Just torn clothes, blood on his forehead, and a heart that refused to stop beating. Kira carried the unconscious human across the rocks. Her arms burned, her eyes stung, but she didn't stop. Behind her, her son clung to her cloak. The boy didn't cry. He was strong like his mother, but his small hand never let go of her side. She had hidden for years, survived alone, fought monsters, but never had she carried a human to safety. Why? She whispered to herself as the wind roared. Why would he save my child? No human had ever shown mercy on Thraxia. The few that came were hunters, thieves, or lost explorers. All had died. This one should have died too. But instead, he had run into the heart of the storm for a child he didn't know. Far ahead, deep in the cliffs, there was a secret cave, a place Kira had only used once, long ago, when she had almost died giving birth to Varn. Few knew of it. Fewer still dared to enter. As lightning cracked again, she reached the edge and slipped inside. Silence. Only the sound of her breath and the rain dripping from her cloak. She laid the human down gently on the stone floor. His chest moved, but slowly. His skin was pale. His hands were shaking. The cold had almost taken him. She had no medicine, no advanced tools, just what she had learned from years in the wild. She built a fire with shaking hands. She used crushed roots to stop the bleeding on his forehead. She wrapped him in furs meant for her child. Varn sat close, watching the stranger. "Mama," he said softly. "He's cold." Kira looked at the human's face. His mouth moved like he was dreaming. She couldn't understand the words. "He saved you," she whispered, "and now he might die for it." Varn leaned forward and placed a small rock in the human's hand. Kira blinked. It was Varn's lucky stone, the one he never let go of, the one he believed kept away the monsters in the dark. That night, as the fire burned low, Kira didn't sleep. She watched the human, and for the first time in many years, she felt something she hadn't felt since her mate died. Hope. By morning, the storm had passed, but clouds still moved like giants above the cliffs. The human stirred. He groaned and turned, his eyes slowly opening. Kira was ready. She had her blade close, not out of fear, but because she didn't trust easy. His eyes opened wide. He saw the ceiling of the cave, the fire, and then her. He sat up fast, too fast. Pain flashed across his face. He groaned again and held his ribs. Kira stood up and spoke in her language. "You're safe. Don't move too fast." But he didn't understand. "Of course," she muttered. "A human." He looked at her, then at the child beside her. Recognition appeared on his face. He pointed weakly at Varn. "The kid, is he okay?" Kira nodded. "Yes. You saved him." The human gave a tired smile. "Good." Then he passed out again. Outside the cave, the wind had changed. The air smelled different. Something was coming. Kira knew the signs. Soldiers would come. They had seen the fireball. They would search the storm fields. If they found a human here, alive and with her, they would kill them all. She looked at the sleeping man. "I should leave you," she said quietly, "but you ran into the storm." She reached for her blade and slowly put it down. Hours later, distant sounds echoed in the wind. Ships, searchers. Kira's eyes narrowed. She had survived for years alone, but now she wasn't alone anymore. Now she had to protect a human, and she would, even if it meant going to war. She hated humans, but her child was safe because of him. The human slept for 3 days. Kira stayed by his side, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest. His wounds had begun to close, but the storm had taken more than blood. It had taken strength. If he lived, it would be because of something stronger than luck. On the 4th morning, he opened his eyes again. Sunlight filtered through the cracks in the cave ceiling, lighting up the dust in the air. Kira stood in the corner, silent, with her blade at her side. Varn sat cross-legged next to the fire, humming to himself, holding the human's hand like it was normal. The human blinked slowly, then whispered, "Still alive." Kira nodded once. "You should be dead," she said quietly. The human gave a weak smile. "Not the first time I've heard that." He tried to sit up. Pain twisted across his face, but he didn't stop. Kira stepped closer, ready to catch him if he fell. But he held himself steady, just barely. "I remember the storm. And the kid." He looked toward Varn. "He's okay." Kira nodded again. "Because of you." The human's eyes moved to her. "You're the mother." "Yes." "I didn't know," he said. "I just saw a child alone in a death storm. I didn't think. I just ran." "You could have died," she said sharply. "No one survives a storm like that. Not without help. Or madness." He chuckled, then winced. "Maybe both." She stared at him. She didn't know what to say. Her people didn't laugh when they were in pain. Humans were strange. "What's your name?" she asked after a moment. "Daniel," he said. "You?" "Kira." Later that day, Daniel sat beside the fire, sipping a bitter root drink Kira had prepared. It wasn't tasty, but it warmed his bones. Varn sat beside him, showing him strange toys made from rocks and metal scraps. "You've been hiding," Daniel said to Kira, eyes on the cave walls. "This place, it's not normal." Kira didn't answer. "I've seen ancient Thraxian symbols before," he added. "On trade ships, in ruins. But these," he pointed to the cave carvings. "This is a sacred place, isn't it?" Kira finally spoke. "Yes. My people call it the Bone Hollow. It's where warriors come to die, or be forgotten." Daniel looked around with new eyes. "And you brought me here." "I had no choice," she said. "You were dying. You could have left me." "I thought about it." Daniel smiled. "Why didn't you?" Kira looked into the fire. "Because my son is alive because of you, and no one has ever done something like that for me." Daniel was quiet. "Where are you from?" she asked. "Earth," he said. "I was part of a small exploration crew. We were supposed to scan the storm patterns from orbit, but something hit us. I blacked out. Next thing I knew, I was falling." "So you fell from the sky, like a burning star." Daniel gave a tired laugh. "Yeah, pretty dramatic entrance." Kira stood. Her face was calm, but her heart was full of noise. For years, she had believed humans were cruel, dangerous. They had a reputation in the galaxy. Greedy, war-loving, proud. Her people told stories about how humans destroyed what they touched. But now, one had risked everything for her child. Her child. The only thing she had left in this world. She walked toward the edge of the cave and looked out at the cliffs. Dark shapes moved in the far sky. Patrol ships. Daniel followed her gaze. "What's that?" "The council is looking for you," she said. "And for me." "Why?" "Because helping a human is a crime. Saving a child like mine is worse." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "What do you mean? A child like yours?" Kira turned to face him. "Varn is a half-blood. His father was not Thraxian. When the council found out, they marked us both as traitors. I ran. I've been running ever since." Daniel looked at Varn, who was now drawing pictures in the dirt. His eyes softened. "He's just a kid," Daniel whispered. "That doesn't matter here," Kira said. "To them, his blood is wrong. To them, He's a threat to the old ways. Daniel clenched his fists. That's not right. No, Kira said. It's not. The patrol ships flew closer. Kira stepped back into the cave. They'll find us soon. If they find you, they'll kill you. And if they find you with me, they'll kill my son too. Daniel stood. Pain twisted through his ribs, but he stayed upright. Then we leave, he said. Kira raised an eyebrow. You can't even stand straight. I'm not staying here to die, he said. And I'm not letting them hurt your kid. He's already been through too much. Kira stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. That night, Kira packed everything they could carry. She hid her blade in her cloak. Varn hugged his mother's leg, confused but silent. Daniel limped beside them, holding onto the wall for balance. As they stepped out of the cave, the wind was calm. But in the distance, red lights blinked in the sky. Searchers were coming. Kira looked back once at the cave that had protected her for years. Then she whispered to the darkness, "The world never showed me mercy, but I will show him something better." And with that, they vanished into the storm. The human opened his eyes and realized he was being hunted. The sky was no longer angry. The storm had passed, but the silence that followed was worse. It was the kind of silence that meant danger was hiding nearby, watching and waiting. Daniel walked beside Kira, each step sharp with pain. His legs still hurt, his ribs screamed every time he moved. But he didn't say a word. Behind them, little Varn followed without a sound, clutching a torn bag full of food, tools, and his favorite rock. They were no longer hiding. Now, they were running. They crossed dry hills, broken valleys, and dark paths that even wild animals avoided. Kira knew every inch of this land. She had survived here for years. She knew where the poison plants grew, where the earth cracked without warning, where shadows whispered lies. But even she was afraid now. Why haven't they caught us yet? Daniel asked quietly as they moved through a narrow canyon. Kira didn't answer right away. She looked up at the sharp cliffs around them, then back toward the open sky. "They don't want to catch us," she said. "Not yet." Daniel frowned. "What does that mean?" "They're hunting us, like prey, letting us run, so they can enjoy the chase." Daniel felt a cold chill crawl down his spine. "That's sick." Kira's eyes narrowed. "That's the council." That night, they stopped in a broken hut made of bone and stone. Kira used to hide there when she was pregnant. It wasn't warm, but it was dry. Daniel sat by a small fire, his eyes staring into the flames. Kira sharpened her blade with a slow, careful rhythm. Varn had curled up in the corner, asleep with his head on a soft pack. "I can't keep up with you," Daniel finally said. "You should leave me. I'm slowing you down." Kira didn't stop sharpening. "You saved my child," she said. "Now I save you. You don't owe me anything." Kira looked up, her yellow eyes glowing in the dim light. "No, but I choose to." Daniel looked away, his voice lower now. "Back home, people like me, we're not heroes. We're normal. I'm not a soldier. I was a technician. I fixed satellites, checked storm patterns. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to matter." Kira was silent. Then she stood, walked to him, and handed him a small object. It was a curved blade made of black stone. Light, sharp. "You matter now," she said. The next day, they moved again. But the world was different. They saw signs, footprints that disappeared too quickly, trees with fresh cuts. The feeling of being watched never left them. Daniel kept the stone blade close. They reached an old con tower half buried in sand and vines. Kira pointed to it. "If we can power it, you can send a signal. Maybe your people will hear it." Daniel climbed inside. Most of the parts were dead, rusted, but he was used to dead machines. He worked for hours, sweating, coughing, bleeding from cuts. Kira stood guard outside, blade in hand, scanning the sky. Then, he got it working. A small screen blinked. The signal was weak, but real. Daniel smiled. Yes, we can do it. If I boost this part. He froze. The screen changed. A message appeared, not in Earth language. It was Thraxian code. Kira stepped inside. Her eyes narrowed. She read the message out loud. The human lives. The traitor walks with him. Prepare to strike. Daniel's blood ran cold. They're listening, he said. They've always been listening, Kira replied. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed through the air. A shriek. Mechanical wings. Kira's head snapped toward the entrance. Run. They burst from the tower just as it exploded behind them. Fire and smoke filled the sky. A drone ship circled above, scanning the ground with red lights. It fired again. Rocks shattered around them. Daniel shielded Varn with his body as they ducked into a ditch. Kira rolled, drew her blade, and threw a spear of metal she had hidden in her cloak. The spear struck the drone's side. It didn't destroy it, but it blinded one sensor. Daniel grabbed Varn and followed Kira into the trees. Branches whipped his face. Blood mixed with sweat. But somehow, he felt alive. They hid in the roots of an old tree. The drone passed overhead, scanning, then moved on. For now, they were safe. Daniel breathed hard. His hands shook. He looked at Kira. That was close. Kira looked back at him. Too close. She handed him a small device. A tracker. They marked you from the moment you fell, she said. That's how they found us. Daniel stared at the device. So we've been running in circles. Yes, Kira said. But now, we turn around. He blinked. What? She looked up at the stars. They expect us to run. They'd want us to hide. But now we fight. Daniel swallowed. Us. You're in this now, Kira said. You've touched something no one on this planet ever has. You showed mercy. That scares them. And fear is a powerful weapon. Later that night, as they rested under a hidden cliff, Daniel whispered to himself, They're not just afraid of me. They're afraid of what I did. And for the first time, he understood something deeper. He hadn't just saved a child. He had changed a story written in fear. He bled for her child. Now she'll burn the sky to protect him. Night fell like a heavy curtain over Thraxia. The stars above didn't twinkle. They burned, like eyes watching from the cold. The trees were silent. Even the wind had gone quiet, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Daniel sat near a dying fire, sharpening the black stone blade Kira had given him. His hands were still rough, full of cuts and dried blood. His body hurt, but his mind was sharper than ever. Something had changed in him. He was no longer just a technician from Earth. He was a man being hunted by another world, because he had cared. Not far from him, Kira stood at the cliff's edge. Her cloak waved in the wind. Her eyes glowed gold in the dark. She had seen war before. She had fought rebels, monsters, storm beasts, and shadows. But this was different. They weren't just hunting her anymore. They were hunting the idea that someone showed mercy. She clenched her fists. They had hurt her for years, taken her name, her place, her home. Now they wanted to take the one person who had shown her kindness. No, not this time. Kira, Daniel called softly, limping over to her. She didn't turn. I used to dream of revenge, she said, when they chased me through the caves, when I begged for food and was spit on, when they tried to take Varn from me. I dreamed of burning their towers. Daniel stood beside her, watching the stars. And now I don't dream, she whispered. I act. The next morning, the world changed. They didn't run anymore. They went straight toward the nearest outpost. It was a small place, just 3 towers, a wall, and a gate. guarded by 5 patrol bots and 2 living soldiers. It stood at the edge of a ruined village. Daniel had doubts. "You really think we can take this place down?" he asked. Kira smiled slightly. "You forget. I trained half the warriors who now chase me. They move like ghosts through the tall red grass." Kira used smoke bombs made from local roots. Daniel jammed the bot's sensors using broken radio parts and pieces of the tracker he had pulled from his own body. The plan was not to destroy the outpost. It was to steal something. Inside that outpost was a data core. It held information about the Council's plans, secret codes, and maybe, just maybe, proof that the hunt for Daniel was illegal, even under Thraxian law. They reached the fence. Daniel crouched behind a generator, sweat dripping from his forehead. Kira moved fast, knocking out one soldier with a silent strike. Then everything fell apart. One of the bots spotted Daniel's reflection in the metal plate. Alarms screamed. Lights turned red. "Move E!" Kira shouted. Daniel ran toward the tower, blaster fire lighting up the ground around him. Kira leaped over the wall and tackled 2 bots. Her blade moved like lightning. Sparks flew. Daniel reached the core room, his hands flying over alien keys, sweat running down his face. Come on. Come on." He grabbed the core. Kira burst in just as the last soldier raised his gun at Daniel. She didn't hesitate. She stabbed the soldier through the chest, pushed him back, and grabbed Daniel's hand. "Let's go." They escaped through a hidden tunnel beneath the wall. They didn't speak until they reached the cliffs again. There, they dropped to the ground, breathing hard, alive. Daniel held the core tightly. "That's it," he panted. "This proves they're breaking galactic law. If we get this to someone who cares." "No one cares," Kira said flatly. "Not out there. But maybe we can make them care." Daniel looked up. "What do you mean?" "We leak it," she said. "We broadcast it to every planet within reach. We show them the truth." Daniel looked at her, stunned. "That will make you a target." "I already am," she said. "But if it protects Varn, and you, I'll burn the sky." That night, Daniel sat beside Varn. The boy leaned against him, sleepy but curious. "Did you really fight robots today?" Varn asked. Daniel smiled. "Kind of. Your mom did most of the work. She's strong." "Yes," Daniel said. "She is." The fire cracked gently between them. Varn looked up. "Are you going to stay with us?" Daniel didn't answer right away. But in his heart, the answer was already yes. The next morning, the data core lit up. Daniel used old human tech to connect it to a satellite system Kira had hidden long ago. Together, they worked for hours, building a signal. When it was ready, Kira looked at Daniel. "Are you sure?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "Let's show them what mercy really looks like." They pushed the button. The broadcast shot into the stars. Proof of the Council's crimes, recordings of the chase, images of a human saving a Thraxian child, and Kira standing beside him. It was a message to the galaxy. One that said, "We are not enemies. Not all of us." High above Thraxia, in a hidden chamber on a cold moon, a figure watched the transmission. A tall creature in silver robes, face hidden behind a mask of glass and steel, leaned forward. "She has broken the silence," the figure said. "Send the hunter. End this, before mercy spreads." They wanted to break him. Instead, he changed everything. The message was out. Across space, Kira's face appeared on black market screens. Daniel's name was whispered in backroom channels. The child, Varn, became a symbol no one could ignore. The outlaws called them heroes. The common people called them hope. But the Council called them traitors. For 3 days, Kira, Daniel, and Varn moved in silence. They hid during the day and traveled at night. The sky above was full of red lights. Drones searched the ground. Ships blocked the skies. They had become the most wanted fugitives on the planet. Daniel's body still ached. His leg was worse now. The blade wound he got while escaping the outpost hadn't healed right. But he didn't complain. Each time he looked at Varn, he remembered why he kept going. On the fourth day, they found the ruins of an old rebel base. It had been burned long ago. Walls blackened, tech stolen, doors broken. But underground, the signal station still worked. It was the only place Kira knew that might reach the wider galaxy again. Daniel looked at the ancient system and nodded. I can fix this. Kira raised an eyebrow. Even with no tools. Daniel grinned. Watch me. He worked for hours. His hands moved fast, pulling wires, melting pieces together with a heated blade. Varn watched him like he was building magic. At last, the system lit up. Signal's ready, Daniel said. We just need someone on the other side to hear it. Kira looked serious. They will. And not just friends. Daniel nodded slowly. Let them come. That night, as they rested, something strange happened. A voice came through the radio. Static crackled. Then a soft, metallic voice spoke. Human. Kira, you have one chance. Surrender. Daniel stared at the device. Who is that? Kira's eyes narrowed. The Hunter. Daniel had heard that name before, in the files they stole. The Hunter was not a soldier, not a machine, not a leader. He was a weapon, sent only when the Council wanted someone erased completely. The next morning, the sky broke. A ship unlike any other tore through the clouds. Long, black, silent. It didn't use sound to scare. It used silence to crush the spirit. The ship didn't land. It simply hovered above the old rebel base. Then, he appeared. The Hunter. A tall, armored being with no face, just a mask that looked like frozen glass. He carried no sword, but the ground cracked where he walked. His armor glowed faintly with energy. Kira grabbed her blade. Daniel stood beside her. I'll go, he said. He's after me. Kira shook her head. No, he wants more than you now. He wants to make an example of us. They hid Varn deep below the base. Then they faced the Hunter, together. The fight began without words. The Hunter moved fast, too fast. He knocked Daniel down in seconds, tossing him like paper. Kira jumped in, her blade clashing with his energy shield. Sparks lit the air. Her arms burned. Her legs ached. But she didn't fall. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about everything they had become. Daniel rose, blood dripping from his nose. He grabbed the old comm core and smashed it into the Hunter's chest. It exploded, pushing the Hunter back. Kira took her chance. She struck low, slicing the wires under his armor. The Hunter fell to one knee. But then, something unexpected happened. He removed his mask. Beneath the glass was a face, a human face. Daniel froze. What? The man looked up with tired, broken eyes. I was like you, once. Why are you doing this? Daniel shouted. Because I failed, the man whispered. I showed mercy once. They turned me into this. And now, I have no choice. Kira stepped forward. You always have a choice. The man shook his head. Not anymore. Daniel walked closer. You can still help us. Right here, right now. The Hunter looked at Varn's picture on the wall behind them. Then, slowly, he dropped his weapon. I'll delay them, he said. But run. Far. They will send worse than me. As the ground shook again, more ships coming. Kira, Daniel, and Varn escaped through the rebel tunnels. They didn't speak for a long time. Above them, the Hunter stood in the ruins and faced the Council's forces alone. Later, as the sun rose, Kira stared at the pink sky. Daniel sat beside her, holding Varn close. We're not just survivors anymore, she said. Daniel nodded. No, we're something more. Rebels. Daniel shook his head. Symbols. Across the stars, their message kept spreading. People began to whisper. On moons, on space stations, on trading ships. The human who ran into the storm. The woman who was never shown mercy. And the child who started it all. A movement had begun, but Kira knew it was not over. The council was preparing for war. And next time, they would not send a man with a mask. They would send something far worse. She was born to be alone. Now she fights with a human at her side. The stars above Thraxia glowed red. Not because of the sunset. Not because of war. But because the galaxy was watching. The message Kira and Daniel sent had reached places the council never wanted it to go. Screens lit up across distant planets. Hidden rebels shared it. Traders whispered about it. Children on dark moons repeated Varn's name like a story. A human had saved a Thraxian child. A trader had chosen mercy. Now, they had become a spark in dry grass. And the council wanted to crush that spark before it became a fire. Kira stood at the edge of a ruined hilltop with her blade across her back and her cloak torn from battle. The wind pushed her long black hair around her shoulders. Her golden eyes stared at the growing fleet above. Ships, big ones, silent, black. They weren't here to arrest. They were here to erase. Daniel stood beside her, his ribs still wrapped, a stolen blaster in his hands. His face was bruised, his arms shaking, but his heart had never been stronger. Behind them, in the ruins of a forgotten city, survivors began to gather. Outlaws, exiles, Thraxians with scars like Kira's, and aliens from other worlds, humans, too, who had heard the call. They had all come because they believed the same thing. Mercy is not weakness, it's strength. Daniel turned to Kira. This is it. Kira nodded. One last storm. He looked at her carefully. You sure you're ready? She smiled softly. I was born ready. But this time, I'm not alone. The council's voice echoed across the valley through loudspeakers from the ships above. You have one chance. Surrender the human. Return the child. Kneel, or be destroyed. Daniel chuckled. They really don't get it, do they? Kira stepped forward, blade in hand. She didn't speak to the council. She turned to her people, to those who had suffered like she had, to those who had been cast out, forgotten, punished for being different. She lifted her voice. When I needed help, they left me to die. When I'd begged for mercy, they laughed. When my son was born, they called him wrong. But when we were hunted, a human ran into the storm for my child. She pointed to Daniel. They say he doesn't belong. They say I am a traitor. But today, I tell you the truth. He is my family, my ally, and I will burn every sky before I let them take him. A wave of cheers broke the silence. Fists rose, weapons clicked. Hope returned to broken eyes. Daniel looked around, stunned. You've started a revolution. No, Kira said. We did. The ships fired first. Red beams tore through the sky. Buildings shattered. Dust rose. But Kira didn't flinch. She leaped forward with a roar, her blade spinning like lightning. Daniel followed, firing from behind cover, hitting drone after drone with precise aim. And then, others joined. A giant alien with 4 arms smashed a council walker. A rebel woman with glowing tattoos hacked their signal towers. Varn, safely hidden but watching from the shadows, whispered, Mama's not running anymore. The battle was long, hard. Blood stained the ground. Smoke covered the sun. But something began to change. The council's drones hesitated. Some soldiers refused orders. Others dropped their weapons after hearing the story. They had never seen Thraxians and humans fight side by side. They had never seen a mother and child lead warriors to victory. They had never seen hope win over fear. At last, the flagship descended, massive, like a floating mountain. The supreme voice of the council stood at its center. Covered in golden armor, face hidden, voice cold. He walked toward Kira. "You've made a mistake," he said. "You think you've won. But mercy does not build empires." Kira raised her blade. "No, but it saves what's worth saving." Daniel stood beside her. "And I think the galaxy is tired of being ruled by fear." The voice raised his hand. But before he could speak again, something strange happened. The people behind him, his own guards, stepped back. They had heard the stories. They had watched the child. And they had seen mercy with their own eyes. They refused to fight. The voice was alone. And when he realized it, he fled. The skies cleared. The ships left. And the storm was over. That night, under a quiet sky, Kira sat with Daniel and Varn by a peaceful fire. People celebrated in the ruins, dancing, singing, remembering how it felt to be free. Kira watched her son sleep in Daniel's arms. "You changed my world," she said. Daniel looked at her. "You changed mine." They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the crackle of fire. Then Daniel whispered, "So what now?" Kira smiled. "Now, we build something new, something better. A world where no child is hunted, and no human has to fall from the sky to be seen." And so, on a planet that once knew only storms, mercy bloomed. Because one man ran into the wind. Because one woman chose not to run anymore. Because one child reminded them what life is worth fighting for. The end.